Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here with Mental Edge Training Coach. If you're enjoying these episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Today, I'll be talking with Taylor Cole. Taylor Cole is a big leaguer for the Los Angeles Angels. He is a relief pitcher, a starting pitcher, a spot starter, a jack of all trades. He can do it all. So I'm excited to talk with him, how he was drafted actually 3 different times. So we're going to dive into that. If you or your son or daughter need some more help on the mental side of the game, of course, make sure you visit mentaledge.training, where I have an online personal development and mental skills course for you to look at and for me to be your personal coach. All right, so enjoy this episode with Taylor Cole. Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here. We are back with Taylor Cole. Taylor Cole is a major league pitcher with the Angels. I call him, he's the jack of all trades, right? He can spot start. He can be a starting pitcher, relief pitcher. He can do it all. Taylor, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Good, Chad. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So we are both in Las Vegas. So Taylor, you have a pretty unique story, and I'm mentioning the introduction of you. You've been drafted 3 different times. So I want you to walk us through your story, what it was like for you in high school, through college, through your mission that you went on. Like, share Taylor's story. What's that all about?
All right. So I went to Bishop Gorman High School, and I was always a shortstop, and pitched all through my life. But once I got to high school, I really just started playing a lot of shortstop. About my junior season going into my senior year, I told, Chef, I said, hey, like, I want to pitch too. Like, I pitched my whole life. He didn't really want to take me away from shortstop, but he's like, hey, we'll throw you out there. And, because my arm was always my best quality, and as a player. Anyways, was hitting some high velocities, getting up there pretty good. And very quickly, it's easier to scout a pitcher that's throwing 94 than it is a shortstop that's good, but isn't hitting the ball out of the park every other at bat. So
you're touching 94 in high school, senior year.
Yeah, 94, 95. Yeah, I was getting up there. Yeah, pretty good. And I knew I'd get drafted. I just didn't know where, right? And of course, my parents going through it for the first time, and I was going through for the first time, and our heads are spinning like every other person that goes through this. And you think you're going first few rounds, and you're getting your ego going, and And, I put a pretty high tag there. Nothing crazy, but I just remember it didn't work out. Draft day came, and I didn't get picked where I wanted to go. I got drafted, in the later rounds. But it just, it just wasn't going to work. So I was planning to go to BYU. Last minute, I decided to go to CSN because I was like, hey, I need one more year. If I have one more year, I'll be able to, well, if I go to CSN, I'll only be committed for 1 year versus 3 at BYU. And, I knew I could just prove myself. So I went there, had a great year. I was drafted again, but I decided, hey, I'm going to go serve a mission for my church. I didn't know at the time that was what I was going to do. It kind of happened within that year of me playing at the College of Southern Nevada. So anyways, baseball was great, but I decided to serve a mission, left for 2 years, came back. And I went to BYU for a year and was drafted and signed at that time by the Toronto Blue Jays. So it was a long road for me. I was technically a sophomore when I was drafted, since I was over 21.
Right.
So yeah.
You were the draft eligible, which is very normal at BYU because you're a return missionary. So you kind of fit in there. But what were you, about 21, 22, probably 22?
Yeah, so I left on my mission in 19. Yeah, I was 21, turning 22. So the draft was in June. I turned 22 August. After that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 times you've been drafted now, right? So
yeah,
you've been through that.
Been through it.
Any regrets with that, of not signing maybe out of high school, that you went to CSN, you went on your mission, and you feel like you made the right choice?
Yeah. So for me, it was a process, a learning process. When people ask me, should I go out of high school? Oftentimes I think it's a very select few that should go in the draft out of high school. Chad, you were, an example of a person that should, you went, top rounder, first rounder. And so, not everybody's going to be that. And so, for me, I just think that I made it such a big deal. And I even gave up, my biggest regret is that I gave up basketball my junior year of high school. And I wish I would have kept playing because I loved basketball. And I never had the experience of being able to play in front of the high school fans. And there's a difference between high school baseball and high school basketball.
No doubt.
It's like football in high school. It's like, man, that's where, you get all the people come and the girls you like come in and, people are watching you, everybody now is a good athlete, and it wasn't necessarily about that, but I love basketball and I wish I wouldn't have given it up. And so I did. I gave it up my sophomore year. And so I didn't play junior, senior year. And I just, I just wish that maybe I just would have just focused a little bit more on not caring about all the extracurriculars, and just focused on my craft and focused on what I was there to do, play baseball. I think a lot of parents these days, they get very wound up in what their kid, it's, what their kid is doing and what college, as they should, but it just gets a little, it takes the distraction away from what's most important. And then your child starts to feel sometimes as if, they don't want to let you down, so there's a lot of components in there where if you just kind of sit back and try to take the ego out of it, it's going to make a much better situation for everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. So now you get into the minor leagues.
Yeah.
What is the minor leagues like for you? Was it a breeze? Did you have a lot of battles, struggles? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I came off my mission at 21, and I hadn't played baseball for 2 years, really like 2.5 years, because I didn't play a little bit before I was getting ready and after, if that makes sense. Come home, and I had never had shoulder injuries before that, and I had a little impingement. And I remember like a few weeks before the season started, like throwing my first few pens and like being thrown right into the fire, and that's what was great about going to BYU is they understood how to work with return missionaries. It was awesome. But that was at BYU. When I started my pro season, you got to realize I went from not throwing for 2 years to throwing 100 innings in college and then going right into college season, and everybody's good now, right? And I was just worn out mentally, physically, everything. And I just wanted, like, I'm used to being the best dude out there in high school and whatever. And all of a sudden everybody else thinks you're the best guy. And so for me, it was like I was like trying to, I remember kind of getting into it with some teammates because like I just wasn't used to not being the dude, and just saying stupid stuff. And anyways, so I think the biggest thing was, that off season, I was like, you know what, I got to get the fire back. Like I had a pretty bad first year in pro ball. I had like a mid 5, I think, or something like that. It wasn't very good. And I remember in the off season, I went back to Utah because my wife was going to school and I was going to school in the off season at BYU. And there's a guy named Jeremy Tannehill, who's like a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, like military guy. And he's always like helping out the players. And I said, hey, I need you to work with me, man. I need to get that fire back. And we met at a little field at like 4 a.m, and he just ran drills. And like, so for me, anyways, it was just me knowing that like I was putting in the work and like doing something different than the norm. And then that next season, I was player of the year in that same, I repeated levels, but I was player of the year, pitcher of the year, player of the year, like had like a sub-1, and just killed it. And I was older. I was playing with a lot of young kids, but it was a long road, man. It was a long road, 8, 9, 7 full seasons before I got to the big leagues.
7 seasons. So
yeah.
And that's a whole different story coming out of if you're drafted out of high school as say 18 years old.
Yep.
I get to the big leagues around 25, 26. How old are you when you get to the big leagues?
I was 27.
27.
Yeah. Turning 28. Yeah.
What was walk us through and tell us your call-up story. How did that happen?
All right. So I was pitching pretty well, AAA. I had been basically rehabbing. I was hurt for that whole year. But anyways, I got healthy and went to AAA for the first time at 27 years old. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't given up like a hit in like 7 innings. It wasn't a ton of innings. But anyways, I'm going home one night and we had extra innings. And in the big league level, and I said, man, this might be the day. And I got a call from Bobby Meacham, who you know actually really well.
Yeah.
And he said, Taylor, you're going to be a big leaguer, buddy. The team, you know, you're going to the big leagues, bro. And so anyways, packed my bags, got out there, went to Houston. And in 2017, and anyways, I didn't pitch for those 2-3 days, went to Toronto and pitched against the Yankees and just got absolutely lit up.
So your first big league game is against the Yankees.
First big league game in front of 50,000. This was when the Blue Jays were like hot.
Right.
Hot, you know, like this, they were the team
in a playoff run, right?
Oh yeah, ALCS and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going in, and it's the Yankees, and like everything that could have gone wrong did, like little bleeders here and there, giving up rockets, walk-in guys, and then I got a comebacker that broke my toe. Actually, I didn't know about it at the time until I went in, got an X-ray the next day. But yeah, but I learned so much from that outing, because I just remember like I wasn't focused at all. All I wanted to do is like get back into the dugout, you know, whatever I can do to just, somehow I just thought, you know, if I could use my adrenaline to get outs, you know, and that was just the worst thing that I could possibly do in that situation. I needed to slow down. I needed to focus, and I just wasn't. And there were so many distractions, but I learned that was probably the biggest learning experience in my career in that game. Yeah,
and that's why it's so different, right? You play in the minor leagues, and you might play in front of some big crowds, right? Maybe it depends on where you're at, right? There could be 10,000's a really good night, say in AAA, and you're like, that's nothing. Like that's a breeze in the park, no big deal. But now you're later in the year against the Yankees, probably 40,000 plus.
Yeah.
Throwing against guys now you see on TV. What was your mindset when you were, say, running out from the bullpen? Like, what's going through your mind at that point?
It was, I remember telling my bullpen coach, I said, hey, Dane, because he was my minor league pitching coordinator before that for like 7 years. This is how like not focused on the task I was. I said, hey, Dane, thank you so much for helping me get here, man. Thank you, you know. And then I run it. He's like, yeah. I was like, hey, thank you, like, appreciate you, man. I'm a big leaguer, you know, like running out, and I'm just like, you know, and get out to the mound. And I remember my first like little bit, I this feeling of having to be perfect, and I was making some pitches, and then like the first hitter, man, like got into a deep count, and like he was pretty hot at the time, and he got a double, you know, over the left fielder's head, and then it just started to snowball. But I just remember feeling like everything was just super quick, you know, and I was leaking in my mechanics, but more so mentally, like I didn't have a game plan. I didn't slow the game down, and I wasn't breathing. There was just so many things. I wasn't focusing on what I was there to do. And so I told myself like they did not beat my best stuff at all. Like they beat me at my worst, basically. And I just thought like, man, this is my chance to be a big leaguer and to be the best I can be in front of like, you know, and they just didn't I didn't bring my best stuff. And I told myself like, I'm never going to allow that to happen again. If I'm going to be beat, it's going to be with my best stuff, you know, or at least what like I want to throw and what I want to go down strong. And it's just a bad feeling when, you know, like, hey, you left things out there, you know, like you tried to take the easy route, and it was a learning experience, but a lot of people get caught up in those emotions, you know?
Yeah. It's so the circumstance is I'm in the big leagues. This is a big deal. Yeah. I've been waiting my whole life for this. I better try harder. I better throw harder. My slider better have more depth and spin rate to it, all that garbage, but you're still the same dude.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I didn't get better in an hour from my bullpen session. So it's like, let's go out with what I have and let's go to battle. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I just remember like after that game, my confidence was completely gone. I did not want to go back and pitch in front of 50,000 and have that happen again. In fact, I was like, I had zero confidence. And I remember going to bed that night, and this is kind of personal, but I went to bed shaking, waking up in the middle of the night, having extreme anxiety with the thought of going back out there and failing again at that stage, because I felt like I had let so many people down on the big league. Like everybody in town was watching that knew me. because
Yeah.
7, 8 years, it wasn't. I didn't get drafted, and 2 years later I'm there. They knew how much I wanted it, how much I grinded, and then I get there and that happened. The anxiety was terrible. I get to the field and my coach says, "Hey, like, why are you limping?" Found out I did have a broken toe, and actually I was shut down for a couple months, and it was like almost like a tender mercy, from God. I feel like he knew like I couldn't go back out there and pitch, and but I was going to take that time to learn what it was that what was the mental block that I was going through there, Yeah. And so I took those 2-3 months, and I worked with a mental performance coach, and his name's Ben Freakley with the Blue Jays. And I just worked on mindfulness practices, focusing on hey, don't worry about results so much. Don't worry about the future or the past, just be present. And we did certain practices each and every day. And I told myself, if I get back to the big leagues, I'm going to slow it down, things that are going to be different about it. And it was. The next time I got to the big leagues with the Angels was totally different.
Yeah. Did you feel like you got to the point where you're like, you know what, this isn't as big of a deal as I thought it was?
Well, in all honesty,
meaning playing in the big leagues.
Yeah.
We put the big leagues on this huge stage.
Yeah.
Right? So how is that different now?
Well, when you're in the minor leagues, you look up to these guys, and it's when you get there, they make it out to be the biggest thing ever, but in reality, it's all just a show. It's all just perception, right? In anything in life that we're going after, it's all just it's just perception. I don't know if that makes sense, but we make stuff into being so much more, and it takes us away in ourselves. But the next time I got called up with the Angels, those same feelings crept into my mind a little bit, the doubts, the negativities, and I called Tannehill again, that guy from the Blue Jay, or from Utah, and I said, "Hey, look at him." He goes, I don't even remember what he said, but I just remember me just kind of feeling a little. But I remember sitting in the bullpen going into that game against the Orioles. This was in 2018, and just saying all right, you're nervous as all heck, but you're going to go out there, you're going to slow the game down, you're going to control the controllables, and you're not going to leave this field without knowing that you gave your best stuff today. And for me, the biggest thing was throwing the inside fastball, because sometimes I was afraid to hit guys, and I knew that if I could get inside on guys, that opened up the rest of my game. And so within the first 2 batters, I threw some balls that they were jumping out of the batter's box, and it gave me so much confidence, knowing hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's what you need to do. And sometimes guys are so afraid to fail that they don't make those little risky decisions. You got to take risk. Evander Holyfield talking about that fight, he said the boxer that takes the most risks usually wins. Okay. And it's the same principle, and I just remember going out there and having a great game, 3 innings, no runs, and I just built, and then you build, mm-hmm. Success breeds success, and you build on that. And so we don't always have the confidence we want, but you kind of got to stick with the principles and I don't know, be brave in a sense, you know what I mean, and go after it and take some risks. So
yeah, no doubt, being brave, because when we're scared, we have fear. The opposite of that is courage, right? And being brave.
Yeah.
So if we don't have fear, then how do we incorporate our courage, right?
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
kind of interesting how that works. So that's awesome, man. So you were able to get over that hump, right? And that's what I wanted to kind of portray with your story, is that, hey, man, we get to the big leagues, and sometimes we put it on this enormous stage. I did it, as I've talked to other people in the show, they've all in a way have done it because they feel like, because these guys are in the big leagues, they are so much better than me. When in reality, is you might be just as good. They may just be older, right? They've been there a little bit longer. You have just as good as stuff as so and so, but you feel like you need the starts, the innings to build up that confidence and finally say, okay, I can do that. I can pitch here.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
Confidence that's the first thing my dad taught me, man. As a young kid, Pistol Pete Maravich, The Birth of a Legend was the video. And we watched it. If anybody has that or it can watch it, you got to watch it. He'd grab our little league team and be like, "We're watching it. Come into my we're coming over to my house before the first game of the season. We're going to watch Pistol Pete, Birth of a Legend. And we run through a wall that first day, Anyways.
He have you watching when you're watching TV, you're sitting there dribbling on the.
Oh yeah,
right
Pistol Pete.
Like the carpet.
By the way, for those that don't know, he's a basketball player. he averaged the most ever in college, like 40 points with LSU. But anyways, yeah, he had these ABCs like drills and stuff. I used to love that stuff. Yeah.
That's
where my love for basketball started.
That's awesome. Yeah, no doubt. Now, I would agree that regarding back to your basketball story, that because basketball always was right in winter area. It's getting into baseball season in high school, and I felt the same way. Like I would have loved to play basketball in high school, right? But you start intramurals in say October. You're going through November. You might have a little bit of a break in December, and then you're right back out there. So usually you're kind of crap out of luck, right, when it comes to basketball. And it seems like a lot of baseball players, when we would have free time, they always wanted to go shoot hoops.
Yeah. Right? The best determinant of an athlete is pick up basketball.
Yeah.
I think so, at least.
Yeah. You can tell in a hurry when a baseball player gets that basketball in their hand, like, oh yeah, this guy can ball a little bit.
This guy can ball a little bit, yeah.
Dunking all over the place. And
yeah. No, exactly. And then you get some stud pitcher or some stud athlete, like baseball players sometimes, and you watch them play and you're like, what? This guy, like, he couldn't, looks terrible out there, Looks like Charles Barkley's golf swing,
Yeah, no doubt. Things didn't work out with Toronto, right? Just like we become free agents, things like that. You're now a free agent. So walk us through, there was a story that it was kind of personal between you and I in our organization, but walk us through that story and kind of what led you to just start reaching out to people.
Yeah. So, once the Blue Jays sent me, once that season ended with the Blue Jays, I got taken off the 40-man roster, and I basically became a free agent because my contract was up. So, and that was one of the first off seasons where getting a minor league job was tough. And like, it was just, they were starting to tone down on some stuff, but my agent just kept telling me, be patient. You'll get a job hopefully. And, I'm talking to teams, blah, blah, blah. Nobody had called me, and it was getting really close to spring training. And I said, I just had this bad feeling that, maybe people weren't working for me like I thought they should be. Mm-hmm. And I just said, hey, I'm going to take matters in my own hand because I'm not ready to be done playing baseball. I know that like there's a, how there's a universe, like, you're meant to be doing something much more than you have up to that point. Like, that's how I felt, and I just thought like, hey, like, I'm not going to give up. I got to make it happen here. And so I started calling everybody I knew. You were one of the scouts that I called. And I just started going around town and I just said, hey, like, can I throw for you? Can I do workouts? And, I decided to set up a workout in Arizona because I knew that's where most of the scouts were. And I went to D-bat batting cages out there in Arizona. And I just got like a catcher, like I think he was like a 35-year-old like dad of like 3 kids came along and like he just caught me. But like, Jason DeRocher with the Angels came, Chad, you're a big part of that because you kind of helped facilitate a lot of that whole thing. But, there was really only 3 scouts, like 2 or 3 scouts that showed up. I mean, not a lot of people showed up, but, Jason saw me that day. I think I hit 94 on the gun in a bullpen, which is pretty good. And I had a little adrenaline going, and he said, hey, I can't, it's out of my hands, but if it's up to me, I'm going to tell him, like, if it was up to me that I would sign you. Yeah. And within a week, the Angels called and said, hey, we're going to sign you to a minor league deal and come to spring training. So I was thrilled because I knew that if I could get back playing, I'd be back in the big leagues at some point. And so I went to AAA, with the Angels for half the season, and then I got called up again with the Angels, and that's when I made that outing against the Orioles. But yeah, had I not have made the decision to for myself, call people, set up a workout, like do all those things, I would have never pitched, I don't think, again in the big leagues. I think my career might have been over. Yeah,
that's what's so cool about it, where you kind of took the bull by the horns, right? And you said you just felt something within yourself, like, look, I'm not done, right? That's the hardest thing, I think, for any player. You've been in the big leagues, you've had a lot of success at AA and AAA doing all these things, and you've seen it, you felt it. You're like, I need more of this because I know there's a lot left in the tank.
Yeah.
And And that's why I was like, that's so cool that you reached out. Now, for the listeners out there, that one of the hardest things to do as a scout is to tell basically a player, like, look, dude, like, that's out of my hands. I can get you maybe in front of a person that makes the decision. Yeah, like just like what we did and what Jason DeRocher said. But the hardest part from our standpoint is like, no, dude, it's not going to work out. Like, meaning, because what we have to see from you is you actually have the stuff to go get guys out.
Yeah.
So I remember Jason, because as Jason and I were kind of helping, like, yeah, we were talking to the front office, and we're like, Jason's like, dude, like, he was touching 94, his slider was sharp. We got a change up that's diving, it's fading. Here's 3 pitches that are very usable, and like, he could go pitch in AAA right now and get guys out, right?
Yeah.
So now we just needed to get you in a routine, right? Back into the swing of things, and next thing you know, you've spent the last 2 years as a huge part of the Angels of pitching in many different aspects of that. And why do you think that's so valuable that you can pitch as a spot starter, a starting pitcher, and all that?
I just think, that's what, the more limited you are as a person in general or a player, like, the quicker you're going to see yourself out of the game. You know what I mean? The more that you can do and offer is just makes you more valuable. I mean, for me, like that first year with the Angels, it was coming in like Sosha just brought me in. Like, it seemed like every game I'd pitch, I'd have 2 days off, and then I'd pitch again. But every time I'd pitch, I'd go 2 or 3 innings. Yeah. In like the 5th, I'd go like 5th, 6th, 7th, or like the 6th and 7th. And then like the players in the bullpen loved it because like they're just, I'm saving their arms, and guys that do that save your arms. And then, just makes the whole system more smooth. So, but yeah, I mean, I was able to start some games, or to open, as they call it. I pitched late into a couple games. And so that's one of the things is that, they knew they had a lot of confidence in me in many different roles. And that's the thing is that for me right now, the reason I got taken off the roster, for those of you, there you go, taken off the roster. For you guys don't know, I'm off the roster, but a lot of that I think is just because, I had an August last year where, it didn't go too well. I lost a little bit of confidence, and, things happen quick in this game, good or bad. I've learned that a lot, is that things can happen very quick. And so I just, I know I can get back there. I know I can prove it, and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, it's just being able to do multiple roles is huge, in whatever you're doing in life.
Yeah, I know a lot of questions come up when mainly parents, when they're talking about pitchers, right? And kind of like, how does my son fit in? And I think for me personally, I'm looking for, like, you're an athlete. Like, you were really a shortstop.
Yeah.
That had a hose. You could hit, but they finally, someone said at some point, look, your future's going to be on the mound, but you are an amazing athlete, and that's what we need. When we want starting pitchers when we're drafting players.
Yeah.
If being a starter doesn't work out, you're still a really good athlete, and you can fill all these different roles when you're trying to build a team. That middle reliever, the spot starter, all these different roles and intricacies of the game. So I think that's huge, and being able to have that, and you're helping save those bullpen arms, like, because it's such a long season.
Yeah. Oh, it is a long season. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
I had to go back to back to back twice this past season, and you start to realize, man, that stuff adds up,
Yeah, no doubt. So you were on the team. Unfortunately, we lost Tyler Skaggs. I did not know him personally, but I'm assuming you got to know him pretty well. Tell us about that special night. This was, after we lost him, where there was a no-hitter. Walk us through that whole scenario and what that was like.
Yeah, so Tyler, first off, was just an amazing teammate and person. He was the guy in the clubhouse that was the most popular guy in the clubhouse, good-looking guy, and one of the aces basically on the staff. Like, he was, but he hadn't even reached his peak yet, but he had zero ego in the sense of, like, any new guy that came in like myself, whatever you need. I remember one time, like, being in Toronto, like, needing a weighted ball, and I could have asked anybody. I asked him to get the weighted ball for whatever reason. He, like, ran way out to the bullpen to get it because I was like, it was a long inning. Anyways, Zero ego. Great guy. one of the best teammates I've ever had in my life. We lost him too early. During that game of the no-hitter, his wife came into the clubhouse before the game, about an hour and a half before, and I was able to say hello to her, give her a hug, along with everybody else. And then I had to get ready for the game and to pitch, and it was hollowed ground. It was very spiritual out there in a sense. You felt that you were pitching for something much bigger, obviously. His family was all there. His mom threw out the first pitch. By the way, she threw out a perfect strike. When I say perfect, right down the middle. Yeah. She used to catch his bullpens and stuff, was a great athlete herself. But, I just went out there, and one of my problems I've had in the past is maybe overthrowing a little bit and trying to do too much. And I remember I've watched it since a little bit in the Mark Goobies, he just says like, hey, Taylor's not overthrowing today, and this, I remember falling behind 3-0 and just grooving a pitch right down the middle, and laced it right at the shortstop, right at Simba. And it's just one of those days where I tried not to do too much and got out of there. I went 2 innings, went inside, felt that I did my job, but then I could have never, ever imagined that an hour and a half to 2 hours later, I'd be running onto the field a no-hitter on the day that we were celebrating the life of Tyler Skaggs. Yeah. I think that was just a way of saying this game is much bigger than what we think sometimes. And, sports, I think, God was a huge part of that. I think that was more so for his family, of course, for Carly and his mom, Debbie. But there's not a greater gift, I don't think, that the game of baseball could have given his family than that, because it just shows that hey, we're going to be okay. It's a way of God saying hey, people are going to rally behind you. You're going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? So, you stay in the game a little bit. You never know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? For years and years, I wondered man, I worked so hard. All my friends are getting to the big leagues, and another day I'm going back to the minor leagues, and I'm not. You compare yourself to other people, and you just think, when's my day going to happen? And, that was pretty cool to think that sticking with it kind of allowed some cool moments like that to happen.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. What if you didn't call, myself or Jason or somebody and didn't set that up? You would have never experienced that. Like you said, maybe I'm done playing. Maybe you're moving on to the life, with your wife and all that stuff. So yeah, that was a really special night for, I think, really baseball in general. Because it seems like there's some type of tragedy. It seems like almost every year, baseball world loses someone. And when you look at the whole baseball world with scouting, people losing their wives, or losing scouts, cancer shows up, and that's part of life, right? It's all crazy and stuff, but man, that was special to watch. And I can't imagine being a part of that. That was pretty cool. So
that was good. Appreciate
one
it.
thing I wanted to ask you about, playing with the Angels, you are playing with what most would consider the best player on the planet in Mike Trout. What is so great in regards to Trout's? We know how great he is. What is he doing behind the scenes that most people don't know about?
It's interesting because I've been watching, and I'm sure you have, and everybody else has been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. And of course, Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan with the shoes and the championships and all that. But relative to talent, Mike Trout is the Michael Jordan of today in baseball. He might go down as the best player of all time. And I told my wife last night watching the show, there's a lot of similarities that I see between Mike Trout and Michael Jordan, and I haven't really been able to pinpoint exactly what they are, but I think the biggest thing is the competitiveness. He does not like to lose, and it seems like that would be a similar trait with anybody that's playing professional sports, but it's a different level, and I think that he does it in a lot more quiet. He's kind of like a Derek Jeter type in the sense that he stays out of the limelight, but competitiveness, I think that he doesn't miss much about what people say, the doubts, not that there's many doubts lately, but he's the first guy there usually at the ballpark, and hits, before most people get there. I'm not going to lie and say like he's in the gym, like crushing it more than anybody else working out. He gets his work in, but you know, he's blessed physically for sure.
Yeah.
Mentally, he's at a different level. He's at just a different level, and his ability to focus, and, you know, not get too high or low. I've never seen him down for any particular reason or say anything negative. You know, I think he holds himself to such a high standard, and he's just on a different level. Yeah, I know I'm kind of going all over the place. He's kind of a funny one because I get asked about him a lot, and I can't pinpoint what it is exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it has to do with the focus and the competitiveness for sure.
Yeah, I would say I've never seen him upset, and I don't know him personally. I've met him once, but you just watch him, the demeanor, and I'd have to imagine that Pujols, you know, is probably my guess is the glue of that team in regards to. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer 10 years ago, right?
Yeah,
And just
it's unbelievable.
The presence. What kind of presence does he have in the clubhouse with you guys?
He's awesome. I mean, when you get around guys that have been stars for a long time, sometimes you find guys not like those guys not being the ones that are like going out of the way to like just say hi to everybody because everybody wants a piece of them. You know what I mean? But what I've done actually is I've made it a point to have a relationship with Albert, right? And we have become, I would say, like buddies, you know, like he's a friend of mine. Like and it's just from like talking to him and interacting with him, and he's the most down-to-earth person, superstar ever. I mean, he's awesome. I remember I walked onto the bus once. The whole bus was filled. You know, Albert, of course, has his own 2 seats because, you know, he's the most senior guy on the team. And there was a rookie, Rengifo. I've told you the story maybe. Rengifo had his bags, you know, but he had his own 2 seats, but he had a ton of bags. And I was like, hey, can I sit with you, Rengifo? Because I was one of the last guys on the bus. Albert goes, hey, Taylor, come sit with me, buddy. And I go, no, Albert is cool. That'd be kind of a bad look in my mind. And I go, Rengifo, can I sit with you, bud? And Albert goes, Taylor, you're sitting with me. So I go sit with Albert, and I look behind, and everybody's just death staring at me. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is Albert Pujols. You don't sit with that guy. Like, he's got more time than anybody else in the league. But, you know, that's the kind of guy he is. You know, he's a down-to-earth guy. The whole time we talked about his charity and how, you know, unbelievable presence person. He's actually got, like, one time, I know I'm getting long-winded with this, but people like to hear about Pujols and Trout. One time in a game against the Rangers, I opened the game, and I walked a hitter that he didn't think I should have walked with 2 outs. And then the next hitter came up and hit a home run. So I gave up 2 runs that inning.
Okay.
And Pujols comes in the dugout, and I had Arcia, who was the catcher at the time, and obviously they're both Latin, and so they were going at it, and, you know, Pujols was chirping at him, like, well, you know, getting on him about, like, the pitching. So I'm like, hey, what's going on? I want to be in on this. Like, fill me in. He pulls me aside, and he says, hey, like, listen, that guy's, like, I'd rather that guy hit a solo home run instead of you nibbling and not going after the guy and then giving up a home run the next at bat. Like, you can't walk that guy. You got to go after him. And I remember my pitching coach coming up, he goes, Albert's right, you know? And you know what? Like, he didn't have to go out of his way to tell me that, but I never forgot it. And he did it in a stern but loving way. And we've had a great relationship. I mean, he's just awesome. He's a great leader. But, you know, I think sometimes, you know, people need to kind of be the ones that initiate relationships sometimes. You know, don't be afraid, you know, for those listening, to initiate relationships with people that have had much more success, or like in some people's minds on a pedestal, like those, like you would think everybody like wants to talk to them, but like they want to talk to you. They just, you know, sometimes like they need to see that you're the one that is interested, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, they seem to kind of want to stick to themselves at times.
Everybody wants a piece. You can't blame them, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get that for sure. Yeah, because I over the last few years, there's been a lot of players that like Torrey Hunter, Josh Hamilton's come through, these big names, and you just kind of wonder. And I think Pujols has been there the whole time, and he just seems to be that glue. Probably a mentor to everybody. And when you have a veteran presence like that, that isn't, you could say, a prick to everybody. And
Not at all, yeah.
Sometimes you got to earn your stripes, right, in certain aspects. But when you have a veteran presence, like, hey, dude, come sit down. Like, let's go to lunch. Like, let's go to dinner. And let's just, like, it makes you feel like, okay, I feel comfortable now. Like, I wasn't sure if I belong here,
Exactly.
You're in your own little world, and I don't want to bug it or mess it up somehow.
Yeah.
It's
like people's perceptions when they get to the big leagues. I don't want to offend anybody. And how do? They get crushed. It's the guys that come into the big leagues and they're like, you know what, I'm going to do me. I'm going to be my same self. And people, will respect that. Like, obviously, like, having feel and staying in your lane on areas, but like, there's a sense of like just being yourself and being who you truly are. I don't know. It all kind of coincides, goes along the same lines.
Seems like we all learn that lesson, right? That every year we get older, we start to learn a little bit more who we are. Like, okay, just be yourself. Stop trying to be this or that. Just do your thing. Right? Do you?
Yeah. Do you? Yeah, exactly.
So Taylor, what would you say is, we'll wrap this up here, but let's talk about, what advice would you give to, say, our young listeners, like our high school kids, college type players, what, from a pitching standpoint, and maybe even a life, baseball life, all this stuff kind of combined together, what advice would you give there?
For pitchers, right?
Yeah.
I think to be an athlete. Okay, sometimes when we pitch, especially in today's age, everybody is about spin rate and hop and mechanics and all these drills and all this kind of stuff that, like, you're changing. Like, the best thing that you can do to pitch and be successful is have conviction in your pitches. And when you have conviction, you're going to throw hard. You're going to have the movement that you want. And even if you don't have the movement you want, you're rewarded somehow because you had conviction. So when all else fails, at the end of the day, if you have conviction in your pitches, you're going to be successful usually, right? And I just think that there's a lot of things that take your focus away from what's most important, and that is being an athlete, going after and competing and having conviction. And it's important to continually work on stuff, but not be overwhelmed by it. Because let me tell you a secret here, guys. Even at the highest level, okay, of the major leagues, and I'm not talking about one person in particular, we're still trying, and a lot of people are still trying to figure out all the ins and outs of pitching. We don't have all the answers, and the coaches don't have all the answers. So, what makes you successful is sticking to what is, your best stuff. So I would just say, like, don't get too caught up in all the excess stuff, and focus most importantly on conviction and, like, going out there and having confidence in being an athlete.
That's awesome, man. That's a great point too. Like, just because you get to the big leagues, it doesn't mean you know everything, that you know exactly what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like,
I'm still trying to figure out a lot of stuff. We all are. If you're not, like, come on,
Yes, and that I think that's just being truthful about it. It's man, you could spend, and I think that's why the game is so awesome, because I mean, I'm even in my I played 13 years. I'm in my 8th, so over 20 years of, like, professional baseball. Like, if I think I know everything, no. Like, I feel like I know a sliver of how much information is really out there.
The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right?
No doubt. No doubt. And that's the whole goal, right? It is, our job really is to just get better every day, get better physically, get better mentally, be better prepared, be your best coach, have a really good perspective of who you are and what you're trying to become, and just have a plan to go get it and get there.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, Taylor, this has been great, man. This is hopefully we can get baseball rolling here in the next few weeks, and probably by the time I throw this out here, hopefully we'll be playing baseball by then.
Yeah, I sure hope so, man. Well, I appreciate it, Chad. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on board, and we'll chat soon. I appreciate it.
Okay. See ya.
Okay. Take care of yourself.